Criteria are the crux of your audit. Without criteria, you can have nothing useful to say about your auditee's performance. That is why a clear, deep, and thorough understanding of criteria is so important. But misunderstandings and confusions about audit criteria are widespread. This video clarifies audit criteria for you. Criteria are two things, depending on the point of view. To the auditor, criteria are the standards for judgment related to the audit objectives and applicable to the entity or activity being audited. They can be laws and regulations, organizational policies and procedures, and generally accepted sound business practices. This definition and these examples are stated in the Yellow Book. Every judgment, criticism, accusation, compliment, and commendation must be based on applicable and objective standards. To the auditee, those laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and sound practices are their guidance for managing their organizations effectively, efficiently, productively, and legally. From both points of view, criteria describe how the organization should be managed. Don't be misled by definitions of criteria that do not focus on the real meaning. Criteria are not references against which audit evidence are compared, as claimed by some consultants. Audit evidence has its own standards unrelated to audit criteria. Criteria are standards for judgment of an organization's performance and guidance that organization uses or should use to manage itself properly, period. Finding your audit criteria is easy given these definitions and examples. Look for what guides or should guide your auditee in regard to your audit objective, and you will have your criteria. If the auditee doesn't have guidance, or if its guidance is weak or ambiguous, that can be a possible cause element in your finding. Criteria have a hierarchy of application. Laws and regulations have high priority. Federal laws have priority over state laws, which have priority over local laws. Regulations issued by government entities have the authority and power of laws. Directives issued by organizations must be consistent with laws. National directives have priority over regional or divisional directives. Contracts between your auditee and another entity can be used as criteria for performance audits. The contract terms are legally binding on both signatories if the terms are consistent with laws in the first place. If laws, regulations, directives, and contracts are not available, auditors can use generally accepted business practices. Generally accepted means the guidance is endorsed by reputable and reliable authorities such as professional associations. Examples include engineering standards, human resources norms, and worker safety protections. Successful practices at similar organizations can be used as criteria. If nothing else is available, auditors can use principles and practices taught by universities and reliable relevant experts. Whatever sources you use for criteria, they absolutely must be related to your audit objective and scope. If they are not, don't waste your time evaluating them, and definitely don't use them in your audit. If you think this goes without saying, we have seen it happen. To be useful as standards for judgment, all directives and generally accepted guidelines must be written and uniformly applied. Any guidance that is not written can be misstated, misinterpreted, misremembered, and misapplied, and is therefore useless as guidance and audit criteria. Save yourself a lot of time, effort, and headache by verifying with your auditee that the criteria you are analyzing truly applies to your auditee's operations. However, if you find any criteria that you firmly believe applies to your auditee and your audit objective, but your auditee isn't using it, you have a finding issue right there. Before you do any audit research at all, you must clearly and thoroughly understand the criteria by which you will judge the auditee and therefore conduct your audit. If you are not clear on this matter, you will waste your time and other people's time researching areas with no relevance to your audit, or you could draw errant conclusions about your auditee. This situation invites rejection of your findings by your auditee. We have seen it happen. Therefore, gathering and learning about your audit criteria should be among the top steps in your audit plan. Some criteria clearly state what an organization is required to do. Others clearly state what an organization is prohibited from doing. Some implicitly allow practices even when they don't explicitly require them. Auditors must recognize these distinctions when applying criteria to conditions found by the audit. Some criteria give organizations discretion over what to do or not do, resulting in wide performance variations. Some are written so ambiguously that multiple interpretations can reasonably result, also resulting in performance variations. Some are so poorly written that needed guidance is omitted. Some are well-intentioned but ineffective or outdated. It's up to auditors to sift through these weaknesses and find solid criteria for judgment. Furthermore, weak criteria can be used as causes of problems found by the audit. Pay attention to conditional auxiliary verbs should, shall, and may. They have multiple meanings with various interpretations and applications. Should means there is an obligation. We have seen auditees argue that should means optional, which is incorrect. Shall gives a command. There is no doubt when guidance says shall. May gives permission and is definitely optional. Any guidance using the word may gives auditees considerable latitude and presents distinct challenges for auditors. Laws are usually stated negatively because of how our legal system works. Generally speaking, if something is not prohibited, then it is allowed. That's why we see laws like this. No person may drive a motor vehicle on public roads without a valid driving license, when it really means every person who drives on public roads must have a valid driving license. So when you see criteria written negatively, you might need to convert it to positive to understand what an entity is required to do. As a matter of grammar, the word criteria is plural and refers to multiple standards. The word criterion is singular and should be used in reference to one standard. In auditing, however, the word criteria is commonly used in reference to the finding element, criteria, condition, cause, and effect, regardless of the number.